All right. We are here with Greg Dobbs, former Philadelphia Philly and World Series champion. Greg, how you doing?
I'm good, Jeff. How are you?
Okay, so as I reached out to you last week, happy 13th anniversary from the World Series in 2008. What's it been like to just kind of look back at that?
Well, one makes me feel very old.
I believe it's 13 years.
I I can't. I mean, my wife and I talk about it all the time, how the time has actually flown, and that seems to be like our gauge was those 4 years in Philly because they were so magical. Oh, eight especially. Uh, and so we gauge everything kind of off of that. But we should probably be gauging it like off of our children's births, but no, we gauge it off of 2008 and winning the World Series. And it's incredible how the time has flown by. And every year that passes, and I'm sure all of my teammates would feel the same way. You know, we look back on it with, I mean, such fondness and just the memories that flood back, especially as you're watching the postseason. Like, and I think for everybody, maybe not you guys, because you guys got to be like locked in for 162 games because you're talking about it every night or every day. Now that we're kind of removed, like at about the All-Star break is kind of when I start to really kind of pique my interest and start to look at stuff. And okay, here we go, second half, see where teams have shaken it out, and then you get into that late run into August and September, and then the post. It's magical, and then it ends, and it's like, you feel like this loss. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to watch now? What am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? And so it's incredible, man.
We saw the Braves win the World Series the other night, which as a Philly fan, obviously is not something that thrills us. Does it bring back memories of your own time when you watch that game of things that happened for you and moments that you experienced?
It totally does. It's funny though, as the years go by, you forget some of those instances, some of those memories, like, because you're not recapturing them, and you're not talking about them. But as I watched this postseason, three things literally jumped into my head. One was the play that Chase made. We were at home. Jason Bartlett, the shortstop, was on second, former Oklahoma Sooner. He and I were teammates. Bartlett's on second. It was the Japanese second baseman, I think, that hit that ball up the middle. Chase comes across, fakes the throw to first. Third base coach sees Chase making that attempt, not thinking he's going to, no one thought he was faking it. Like, even us in the dugout, we're like, okay, just get the out, right? Whatever. He fakes it. Third base coach sees it, sends Bartlett, and he throws home to get out Bartlett at home. Chooch lays the tap. Like, I'm literally getting goosebumps because you don't see those plays every day. But that play was so crucial because it happened at such a crucial point in the season, in the World Series, where the game literally can flip on one play or one run or one pitch. And so that I vividly remember that. And I vividly remember like my head just being blown, because Chase is obviously a very cerebral guy, but that was like next level. That was literally next level. Like, and it was nothing that he practiced or maybe he did mentally. It just talk about being in the moment and responding.
So was that something like, did you ever have a chance to talk to him and find out, was it something that as the pitch, like before the pitch, you go through, scenarios in your mind? Is that something that he had already thought about, or was it just something that instinctually just happened?
You know what? I have not spoken to him about that. And I want to. I'm sure he's discussed it in interviews, because that was such a heady play, right? I would love to know. I think it's probably a combination of both. Chase was, as we all were, Chase is very good at surveying the land and running through these scenarios pre-pitch, and it's what Steve Smith, Jimmy Williams, Davey Lopes, that staff, they really harped on that. And they taught us what it meant to, okay, listen, there's a lot of things that could happen here. run those through your head so that you're at least prepared for it and you're not caught on your heels and you can execute in the moment when the stakes are the highest. I have to think it was a little bit of both, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jay said, "No, I was just kind of on the fly. Like I just right when it happened, I just kind of did it." I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't.
So, what other stories? You mentioned you had 3. What else comes to your mind this time of year? Because you could see the excitement as you relive them. I can only imagine the excitement of going through it, but now as you revisit it, you can see you get right back in that moment.
It's like a time warp, it's like a wormhole that just takes me back and takes all of us back up. I'm fortunate to live, Jimmy and I live near each other and we play golf often, and it's going down that memory road together, he and I talking about things and the memories that we had and these certain things in certain games. The other thing I vividly remember was the nor'easter that came through, right? And that 2.5, 3 days where we were just sitting and wondering and waiting what was going to happen. And then we get back to the park and we got to start the game up again in the middle of the game. And we're coming up to hit. And it was in the locker room. It was me, Jeff Jenkins, and Matt Stairs, because they were going to bring in a right-hander. And we're all, and there was no decision made yet on who was going to lead off the inning because we had to pinch hit somebody. And I vividly remember all of us just sitting there. I mean, kind of nerve-wracked because who needs to get up, who needs to get ready, so we're like, well, we're just all going to get ready. So we go down to the cage, we're hitting, we're doing all this, but then we're looking at each other going, you, me, you, me, like, and it was nerve-wracking. It really was. And we all were like, we all need to be ready. Let's just prepare as if we're all going to do it. And that was like the beauty of our clubhouse, was we were all like this, like we were all pulling for one. It didn't matter if I got the nod, if Charlie or Jimmy pointed at me, or they pointed at Jeff, or they pointed it at or they pointed at Stairsy. It didn't matter. Like it was like we were all going up there together. And then they picked Jenks, and of course they did, right? And he comes up and he hits that double. So that was pretty incredible. I mean, again, like, we have rain delays and you have games that are postponed or canceled or whatever, but to have that in during the World Series, during the big, one of the biggest games of the season, was pretty incredible. And then the third story that just jumps out at me was post game after we clinch and we win. Burrell, pat the bat, God bless him. He rallies everybody up to go to his place to continue the celebration. And we literally had a police escort. We're police that escorted us down Broad Street through the pandemonium, right? I mean, like, cars are flipped over, trash cans with fire coming out of them. Like, I mean, the city erupted, and here we are getting police escorted to Burrell's place in like Rittenhouse, and
Are you kidding me?
I'm not. I am not.
I sat on Broad Street getting out of that park. I was at both of those game 5s, and I sat in that parking lot in Broad Street for 3 hours before
That's why
I could
you
get out of
sat,
there.
because Greg was getting an escort to Pat's house.
Whoa, not just me, all of us. Okay,
It's all your fault.
Yeah. Fine. I mean, you can put it on me. Whatever.
It's okay. You can do whatever you want in this city once you win the World Series.
Champion at that point. You can do anything.
But that was incredible, guys. Like, seriously, like, to have Philadelphia's finest like lead us down and through the pandemonium so that we could get to Burrell's and celebrate. And then Burrell invited them up, to celebrate with us for a little. And they, kind of came up for a little bit. They're like, we got to go back around the clock. We got to go back to work. That was incredible. But it just goes to show, like, you win in a city like Philadelphia, like everybody wins, and it was that sense, and it was incredible. It's incredible.
Except in traffic, not everybody wins.
Except in traffic.
Yeah.
That's clearly not over that yet.
So, Greg, when I hear that story, you say that's what made it special. To me, what made it special, at least from the outside, was seeing how close that team was. And I don't know if you had a chance to see the special on the '86 Mets called "Once Upon a Time in Queens."
I haven't.
You have to see. We had the director on, Nick Davis, but what was fascinating about that was how dysfunctional that team was, to the point that for the parade, Doc Gooden was getting drugs and missed the parade, and all these things that were going on. And then you hear about these stories like the story you just told, about how after the World Series, you're all going over to somebody's house and celebrating together. How special was that, and how uncommon is it for a locker room to be like that?
It's a good question. It is truly special, and I think it makes the entire experience even more special and memorable, because winning is fantastic. Losing obviously sucks. But there's different levels of winning and the satisfaction that comes from winning, right? If you win on a team where you all are pulling from the same rope and you're literally a band of brothers like we were in Philly, it makes it exponentially more satisfying and more memorable. Where if like with the Mets team, and I played on plenty of teams that while we didn't win, a little bit of a ragtag group of misfits, right? Who you had some guys who you got it and understood, but you had other guys who could give a flip and were only concerned about themselves and weren't team players and weren't really truly concerned or focused on winning. So it makes being a part of a team that was that special, makes the memories. And I think it's also why we have all kept so close, and why when we see each other at reunions, I mean, the hugs, the smiles, the feeling that you get being back around each other. I can't imagine it being any better, but I could imagine it being worse if you won on a team that, like the Mets, where, it was guys were just all over the place and weren't, didn't have that one common goal, or didn't all truly get together, respect each other, challenge each other, and then, and could realize that they accomplished something incredible, not just on their own, but because we had 25 guys doing it. That's the beauty of baseball, right? I think it's a beauty of professional sport, especially team sport, which is it's a group of individuals. It's a group of guys. It's a group of personalities and characteristics. It's a group of different backgrounds and cultures, and to have that special mix, and for everybody to come together who have come from all different parts of the country or the world, for one common goal and one common purpose, and then to do it, and then to actually execute that and win it all. There is nothing better.
Can you guys all get together and come back and play next year? Because it's been a decade, and so we talked about you coming back for the Phillies postseason run. Well, obviously that didn't happen. But one of the things that's frustrating about this team, as much as there are people like Bryce Harper that, it's hard just not to love the guy and what he's done in the community, what he does for the team, what leadership he has. One of the frustrating things, and I think we talked about it the last time you were on the show, was fundamentals. And you just explained that, Davey Lopes and the coaches pushed you to get better and to work on fundamentals, and you worked on fundamentals. You don't see that now. Is it a coaching thing? Is it on the players? Is it a combination? And how do you fix it, or can you?
That's a tough question. Good question. Tough question. I don't think one, not being in that clubhouse, so I cannot put that on the coaches, the staff, or the front office. I think there are certain rules and commonalities that go with baseball, just like they do with football or soccer, right? You have to be able to execute certain things, whether it's executing pitches, executing defensively, getting bunts down. You saw yesterday with Correa. Sorry, that's my computer's yelling at me.
Lunch is ready.
Jeff
Yeah,
Jeff was worried that it was me, so don't worry about it, Greg.
Okay, good. I feel better.
Next time, just blame Jason.
I will from now on. Jason, it's all your fault.
Right.
Yeah, you have to, I firmly believe those things will never go away. You will always have to execute. But so then I think what it comes down to is philosophy, right? So you don't get to the big leagues without being able to execute at some point or having been taught to execute at some point, because you're not always going to be able to rely on the 3-run homer. You're not always going to be able to rely on your pitchers throwing shutouts or keeping the other team to 1 or 2 runs. And you're going to make errors. Your team's going to make some errors in games, right? So I think it's more of a philosophical ideal and question, which is philosophically, our teams, and specifically if we're talking about the Phillies, are the Phillies philosophically, and I don't know this question, I don't know the answer to this question, are they, and I wish I could be a fly on the wall to hear in and listen, but philosophically, are they preaching these things, right? Or are they just relying on the heart of the order coming up, guys like Harper, Real Muto, who I just absolutely adore. They're both fantastic. But if you're just relying on that and that's your philosophy, and you're not doing the little things, you're not stealing bases, you're not hitting and running, it's tough. And because those little things over a 162 game season, those small things, those small and what may seem completely irrelevant executions, moving first and second, nobody out, and someone drops a bunt and moves guys to second and third with 1 out, something as minuscule as that can be enormous over the course of a season. And you can look back and say, and then you can go into the postseason, more importantly, having done those things during the regular season, and have confidence in executing in the postseason, in the World Series, where the pressure is at the highest it will ever be, right? Where execution means everything. So it's a double-edged sword. If philosophically you're not asking, or you're not preaching to your team and your players, and the players aren't preaching to each other as well and talking to each other about executing properly. If you don't do that during the regular season, you can't expect them to do it in the postseason, right? So it has to start there, and then you can back that up further. It starts in spring training. Like what's the philosophy there? Where does it be? Because that's where it begins truly, right? You set the tone there, and that's what Davey, Lopes, Jimmy Williams, Steve Smith did so well, was they set the tone in spring training.
I understand the errors when you're trying thing, but how does a team react when a player keeps making mental errors or hustle issues? I mean, as a fan here, you hear complaints about Odubel Herrera and how much talent he has, but at the same time, how there are plays that just don't make sense sometimes. How does a team react when you have a player doing things like that consistently to be inconsistent?
The good teams, they police that themselves. And that's what we did. We policed each other very well. And we got on each other, right? If we felt, now luckily we didn't have guys that didn't hustle. And it's truly what do you have? What are you in control of the most, right? You're in control of your attitude, your work ethic, your determination, your hustle. Like those things you're in complete control of 24/7, right? So if you control them, then it becomes, okay, so you can control them. Now are those things important to you, right? And for guys that don't do that consistently, again, whether it's maybe they're dealing with a hamstring or a calf or what, who knows, but if they're perfectly healthy and they're doing it consistently and not putting forth, I mean, no one's saying, I'll never forget, no one's saying being a Darren Erstad. Remember Darren Erstad? No one's saying being a Darren Erstad who would hit a 1-hopper back to the pitcher and would sprint to first base, trying to tear both of his hamstrings off the bones. No one's saying do that. Okay. Now, Darren Erstad was a mutant. That was the football in him. That was the Midwest Nebraska attitude. I loved it personally. I think that's why a guy like Chase Utley, one, again, incredibly talented, but he hustled, and he always hustled. You never felt, either as a fan or as a teammate, that he was just kind of laying up, right? So it's tough to watch. It is. And I remember discussions, though, that we'd have in the clubhouse. You know, I remember, God love him, Jimmy, my boy. I mean, I remember Jimmy getting benched, and I'm sure you guys remember it too, for not hustling down first base. And Jimmy's, and we sat and we talked about it after the game. Like, we literally, like, we sat and talked about it. And Jimmy's like, hey guys, that I get it. But that's like, why am I going to, I'm here for 160 games, hopefully 185 or 190. Okay. That's my goal. Why should I go 95, 100% on a 2-hopper to the shortstop and potentially do something? So it's valid argument, right? But still tough to be like, okay, but you don't have to go 30%. Just give like 67 to where it looks like, you know, so that's the trick, really, right? The trick is give just enough to make everybody say like, okay, you got down the line. Okay. But knowing yourself that you were like at 65, 67%. But
with Jimmy, I mean, yes, there were people who were vocal about it, but I think most of us understood. To me, it was like a running back who runs out of bounds, as opposed to getting an extra half a yard when you don't need it and getting plowed over by the linebacker. The difference between that and I think what Jason's talking about is the mental mistakes, not necessarily hustle, because I don't think anybody doubted Jimmy's hustle when it mattered. Never. But when you have somebody like Odubel who's constantly throwing to the wrong base and not hitting the cutoff man. Now, as somebody who coached Little League baseball, it used to drive me nuts. But those are kids that are learning, and you teach them. By the time you get to the major leagues, you should know what base to throw to. Your mind should be in the game at least for 9 innings.
Correct. And so just to get back to the Jimmy and the hustle thing, I picked up on the mental part. I'll touch on now, but that whole scenario, what happened with Jimmy, was amazing for me to learn too. I mean, I learned an incredible amount by Jimmy explaining it. Like, well, why would I bust so hard right down there and risk injury? And for me, a light went off. It was like, oh, that's kind of like next level thinking. Some guys have that ability to do that because they're that good. Mm-hmm. Jimmy was that good. I wasn't, so I always had to like, and plus I wasn't as fast as him, so I really had to try to move. I'm a lot larger human. But the mental side, that is very, very frustrating when, you know, when guys mentally aren't locked in and cued in. Again, it's one of the things that you can't control is your focus and mentally being there. You're not always going to physically be there, but mentally you should be there almost every night. And I understand it's tough. Guys are dealing with a lot. Maybe there's stuff off the field they're dealing with, family issues. Get it, right? We're humans, we're fallible, we're emotional. Totally understand. But to have a player or players that continue to make those types of just mental errors, not hitting a cutoff man, right? How I get it. I've missed cutoff man. So listen, I'm me saying like I've hit every cutoff man. I'm like, no, I've done. Come on, I've done it. Not purposely, but I've done it. To have that happen over and over again, I like. How do you get through to that player? And there are a litany of players in the league that you'd want to have that talk with. It's like, okay, well, by you doing that, you realize you're putting the rest of the team at jeopardy of potentially losing this game because of a lack of execution or a lack of mental awareness. And I think that's tough. I think I don't know if it's the, we've discussed this on our last discussion, was the new age player, right? And the differences between the players of old, 20, 30 years ago and the players of today, right? Where it's, are they, are they more concerned with their personal stats? Are they more concerned with showing off their cannon, right? And airmailing everybody. I think you see it more often than you do. Like Vladimir Guerrero and Ichiro Suzuki could do that, okay, because they had absolute cannons, and they were accurate, and so no one questioned them. If you're not one of those and you're consistently doing that and making those sort of mental errors and mental mistakes, yeah, there's something wrong there.
We got about 5 minutes left. I mean, there's so many different directions we could go. The potential work stoppage. I don't really want to go there, though. We've had a bunch of umps on lately. We've talked about umps care and the work that they've done. The conversations are always fun. From a player perspective, what was it like to relate to the umps at home plate? You always see those conversations and laughing going on. We heard stories of throwing managers out where the manager's basically giving recommendations of what to order for Italian that night while he's yelling at them. What's your interactions with the umps?
While I was playing, there's, listen, there's that. How do I eloquently put this?
I love
It doesn't matter. They're not calling balls and strikes on you. You can say whatever you want.
I know. But come on, the relationship between the player and the umpire, through the minor leagues, you didn't know who they were because you were going from league to league and you're going up and down. Like you didn't know. They're just umpires. They're the men in blue, and they're always out to get you. So there was that, right? There's always that in the back of your head. You get to the big leagues, and now you're with guys like Angel Hernandez, Joe West, Hallion, Wolf. You're with these guys who have been around, just a few. There's so many others. Dan Izonia, like they've been there for, and now, and if you become a guy who's been there for a while, you develop relationships with them. And I saw it more. Catchers, obviously, like Chooch, right? Chooch, part of his genius and why he was so good was he took pride in developing relationships with the home plate umpire. Right? To like, why not ingratiate yourself to him and have a civil, honest, understanding relationship it can only help, right? But to be able to say hey, under his breath, hey man, that ball's a strike, like as Chooch would do, hey, that's a strike, man. But to be able to have that, very valuable. I enjoyed it because like I said, in the minor leagues, I didn't have any relationships with any umpire, but when I got to the big leagues and I established myself in the big leagues, I felt like I could open up and I could say hello to Wolfie when he was at third, right? And Wolfie and I would have great back and forths. He'd always flex because he's always working. He's like, hey, check out my catfish, right here. Like, yeah, I get it, Wolfie, you're jacked. Okay, you're jacked. I wish I looked like you, and you're an umpire.
He's the Ed Hockley of baseball, huh?
I mean, the dude is freaking yoked. I enjoyed it and I enjoyed making those and getting and then you get to know them on a more personal level, and you realize they're human beings too. They've got a really tough job, by the way, right? And a very thankless job, mind you. That job is thankless, literally, because everybody is looking for the umpire to make one mistake, and they're humans. They make mistakes. Well, now not so much with replay, right? Now that's kind of gone out the window, really. You think about it.
Nah, they still get it wrong.
They still get.
Not the umpires, the replay officials. Yeah.
True. That's right. But it's all's forgiven. Everything's washed away. Right. So I really appreciated, one of the things I appreciated in my time in the big leagues was getting to know these guys and creating kind of relationships, right? And understanding. Because you never know. Well, yeah, you never, maybe saying hello, a simple hello to Laz Diaz, okay? And then me speaking some broken Spanglish to him, right? And he going like, oh, hey, tu habla? Wow, hey, well, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, you didn't know, no, I look Dominican. You know, like who knows if that helps? If behind the plate, you know, he comes up and he's like, hey, Dover, how you doing? Hey, Laz, how's it going, man? You know, maybe he calls a strike a ball, right? But I enjoyed getting to know them, and I'll one of my favorite umpire stories. Again, Pat the Bat. We're in Philly, and night game. Hallian's behind the plate, and you know he does that. You know he's just so animated, and everybody's like, oh my god. Burrow's up, and I'm on deck, and strike two, and Hallian rings him on strike two. Pat literally doesn't flinch, doesn't move in the box. All he does is look at him and out loud goes, hey, Hallian, back it down, Tom. Back it down. And
What happened?
Hallian through the mask was like 7 shades of red. But Pat handled it so beautifully. He just said, back it down. and then went back to his whole like pre-pitch routine. I lost it on the on deck circle. Because he said it so loud. Like the first row in Citizens Bank could hear it. It was incredible. It was amazing.
I hope he swung at the next pitch, because I'm sure it was a strike no matter where it was.
No. I think he worked a walk. I
guess he did back it down.
He did.
I know you've just given Jeff something to try on me on the show. Like I'll get into something. I'll be like, back it down.
Back it down, Jeff.
Did you ever come close to getting thrown out?
In the minor leagues, yeah, but not even really. I had a long fuse, and then when I got to the big leagues, I was like, okay, well, I don't really play that much, so if I get thrown out, that means like I'm not playing, and I really want the opportunity to play. So I probably could have more so than I thought I could, and maybe could have pushed the line a little bit. But no, I will remember it. The one time I got really close to being thrown out in the minor leagues, I drew a line in the. So we're in Tacoma. That's what I'm with Seattle in AAA. And I take a pitch, and this umpire had been slightly lenient with his strike zone. I take a pitch that is in, and it's almost literally in the batter's box, in my batter's box, over the white line. It was definitely in between the plate and the white line of the inside of the batter's box. And I looked at him and I go, that's not a strike. There's no way that ball's in. And he's like, no, Greg, no, Greg, that was on the plate. And I go, no way. I have this ball here. And I didn't know this, but I was told this by my manager afterwards. And he could not believe I didn't get thrown out. But it was like, it's like, what was that movie where they said, you know, you can insult somebody, and you can say the worst thing about them, but if you preface it with all due respect, so with all due respect, I hate you, or with all due respect, you know, go fly. Like if you just preface it, and I somehow in my tone, I prefaced it, I guess, with all due respect, you suck. And I drew a line in the dirt and to show him where I thought the pitch was. And apparently that is like an unwritten rule that is right there. Like if you start, you are gone. Like they are tossing you. But he didn't toss me. He didn't throw me out of, and my manager couldn't believe it. He was like, I've never seen anyone do that. Like usually like, see you later, there's the showers. So
yeah, but by the way, as somebody who practices law, you can't say with all due respect and get away with whatever you're going to say next. So I'm amazed that you got away with it.
Well, with all due respect, I'm not going to try and get away with anything. We're going to have to cut it there for the interview. Greg, we could talk to you all day about everything. We'll definitely have you back again to talk more. This was a blast, man. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Chase. Thanks, Jeff. I love being on with you guys. Thank you so much.